Good day, and welcome to another edition of Todd Talk, where we take teaching theory and turn it into teaching practice. The theme for this month's Todd Talks are going to be academic extracurricular activities that are designed to challenge students both creatively and also cognitively. The academic extracurricular I want to talk about today is called Destination Imagination. So I've been involved with Destination Imagination for the last 15 or so years. I started by taking middle school students, but what I soon discovered is that you could take kids as young as kindergartners all the way to seniors in high school to compete. And so I kind of got hooked. So to give you the brief overview of what Destination Imagination is students are given a problem, and then they must create a skit that solves this problem. And what they have to do is make sure that they're solving it in a creative manner, and that there are certain elements that they have to meet depending upon the challenge that they choose. And so they're given this scenario at the beginning of the year, and they work on it all year, and then they eventually will present this at the Destination Imagination Regional Tournament. But talking about it and seeing it are two very different things. So talking about it doesn't really do it justice. So let me show you a brief clip from a Destination Imagination team.
For this challenge, teams were asked to research an extreme environment, a real physical place within our universe, and present a story about the need to adapt and survive there. One or more characters will use the extreme gear that the team has created to help them to adapt to these environments. The team also has designed and created an environmental depiction of their extreme environment. I'd like to present to you a team from the Utica Community School District. Praisers, are you guys ready?
Extremely ready.
How about you team, are you guys ready?
Yeah.
All right. I want you guys to take a deep breath. You have some fun. Good luck. And your time begins now.
Stop.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. We are going to tell you a story. This story is about two scientists and an explorer. Our story begins as the explorer and the scientist set sail. They are looking for the saltwater iguana. But while they are stuck out at sea, waiting for a breath of air, a great storm comes. After they crash on a desert island, and only a few parts of the bow and our characters survived.
You guys, wake up.
Huh? What? Where are we?
We're on a deserted island. You guys, what's that over there?
That there is a saltwater iguana.
So why do I like Destination Imagination? Well, first off, if you take the framework for 21st century skills, which are critical thinking, collaboration, communication, and creativity, Destination Imagination uses all of these skills. So for critical thinking, students have to come up with a way to solve their problem. Then come up with a solution that is unique. When it comes to collaboration, they have to work together. Usually they're teams of 4 to 7 students. and they have to work together with one another. Each plays a certain role, each plays a certain part, and they have to learn to work with one another successfully. Communication. So you have to, I always tell my groups, like, you know what your skit's about, but your job is to communicate to the audience and to the judges what your skit's about, because it's not going to be as obvious to them. And so the communication comes in several forms. It can come in props, which you saw there. It can come in costumes. It can come in the dialogue. It can come in what the narrator is saying. So, but you have to communicate what it is that you're doing in your skit so it's clear to people. When it comes to creativity, that is definitely used quite a bit in Destination Imagination, which is probably what the most important aspect for me is that students have to be creative in order to solve these problems. So they have to dig deep cognitively, and they have to be able to take their creative side, and maybe they're creating a prop that's creative, or a costume, or another way to look at something. And so Destination Imagination, I think the most important thing I like about it is it's fun for students. Every year I take a group, they always want to go back the next year. And that is always a good sign, because I've done things with kids when they're like, nah, we don't want to do it the next year. But I worked with teams for 4 to 5 years, and they would do it, starting in 4th grade and all the way up into 9th grade. And so they obviously love doing Destination Imagination. Now, the way it typically works is each state has its own governing board, and they kind of run the state Destination Imagination. And so then the state is divided up into regions, and then the region is responsible for your specific region. So typically what happens is there is a tournament somewhere in the end of February, beginning of March, which is a regional tournament. And your students would compete in the same age range, same challenge as other people, and then they would be judged accordingly, and then they would be given a score, and then the top 3 scores then, or sometimes the top 1 score, moves on to the state competition. So the state competition involves all the best participants from the regional tournaments. The state tournament's kind of the same way. So you are competing against people in the same age range, same challenge, and the top, however many get to go on to globals, which is students from all over the world. In Destination Imagination, at the very beginning of the school year, students will then select a challenge that they would like to compete in. So as you can see, there are typically 8 challenges. The first one is technical challenge. On the technical challenge here, this prompts students to complete a task using engineering research. And so they might have to create something that moves or that carries something, but it's some form of engineering, and they would spend all year creating this device that would be used. Scientific is using scientific theory or scientific knowledge or scientific law, and using that to solve something. So whether it be like having to find an invisible ink, so you have to create a compound for that. And that would be an example of a scientific solution. The third one is engineering. And in engineering, they ask teams to not only have a skit, but then they have to have these weights. They have to build a device that holds weights. And it has to, and however many weights it can hold is how you get scored better. So this one involves, you having to be able to create a structure that is able to handle that. The fine arts one is more the theater, and this is, more props, more costumes, and more stage-like. And so the really artistic and acting students would go for this one. Improv, which is one of my favorites, is you actually don't get much about your skit. You get certain elements, and then you have to research 10 people. And then when you get to the actual event, they'll choose 2 of them and you'll have to put them in your skit. Or you have to research 10 countries and you may only have to you choose 1 that has to be in your skit. And so the improv, as it says, is improvisation. Students don't know what this challenge is going to be when they show up, but they have studied and researched and practiced lots of things, and so they're able to put their improv skills into play. Service learning is a little bit different in that it's not so much a skit, but it's showing what the students have done in public service to address real life community issues. And so you would present in front of the judges and tell them give them a slideshow of what you did over the course of the year. The early learning or the rising stars they call it, is for the kids who are preschool through second grade. And this is a non-judged category. So in other words, everyone gets a medal. There's no places, just everyone gets compliments. And so that's the way that the rising stars is. The eighth challenge is actually everyone participates in this challenge. And this is called the instant challenge. So all the other challenges that I showed you, there's 7 challenges here, are what are called central challenges. And that is worth 2/3 of your score. Total score. 1/3 of your total score is based on an instant challenge. And again, you won't know what this is until you show up. And so you may have to perform a skit. You may have to build something from certain materials. You may have to, reenact something. But basically, you're showing up and they're saying, this is what you need to do. And you have to make it up on the spot. And however creative you are gets you better scores, or how well you work together, or how well you critically think about the problem. And so the instant challenge, you can practice instant challenges if you go. I'll leave a link here on how you can go, or where you can go online to find a bunch of instant challenges. But we just practice instant challenges throughout the year, both performance instant challenges and ones where you actually have to create something with your hands, which are the different types of. And sometimes there's a hybrid where it's both of those. So there, in a nutshell, is Destination Imagination. This is a program that I'm very passionate about because, like I said before, it allows kids to really use their creativity when it comes to the problem solving, when it comes to creating the different solutions to the skits. Oftentimes, there are all of the challenges have improv elements to it, where there are things you're not going to know and you're going to have to make up as you go along. So it really makes kids think quickly on their feet. Sometimes in schools, we focus a lot on the athletics when it comes to extracurriculars, but Destination Imagination is a great example of an extracurricular that you can start in your school system or just with your class, and this allows them to be creative.